Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mike Armstrong podcast show. And this afternoon, I'm joined by Leslie Fieger, who is author of the Dolphin Trilogy and also CEO of the Dolphin Group and the Dolphin.com website. And he's joining us all the way from Toronto in Canada. Is that right, Leslie?
Yeah, a little town just outside of Toronto.
Okay. Yeah, and he's joining us, well known in the personal development space. And we're going to have a chat about entrepreneurship, personal development, life, and whatever else comes into the mix. So you having a good day there today, Leslie?
Absolutely. Beautiful sunny day.
Yeah, it looks nice. It looks nice and bright, and a bit brighter than it is here. It's been hammering it down all day today so far. But I am in the Welsh Valleys, just north of Cardiff, so these things happen. So just for the audience and for people watching and listening on my podcast and the YouTube channel, do you want to just tell us a sort of overview of yourself and what you do? I know it's a big question. It's a big question. There's a lot of answers, but see if you can try your best.
What do? I go out for hikes in the woods with my dog.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's always good to get out and have a bit of mindfulness.
There we go. Now, for the past quarter of a century or so, I've been committed to doing whatever I can to uplift and empower my fellow human beings through my writings, my courses, my online activities and whatnot. So you mentioned personal development. I prefer to call it personal empowerment. But yeah, I've been teaching, traveling the world, speaking on stages, writing, speaking to people all the time about how to self-actualize, how to become more of what they're capable of becoming, how to develop their own success story and go about creating that in the world.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. I myself am somebody who's always believed in marginal gains and just improvement and just self-improvement, improvement, business development, etc. I've been in the sort of corporate world for quite a long time and always been involved in sales and sales management, sales direction, trying to get more out of people and more out of stuff. But since being self-employed and going through a big divorce and having some bad stuff happen to me and all of that, I then sort of gravitated towards the personal development space and the empowerment space, etc. And I myself, I love helping people as well. I love helping people to develop and to grow into the people they're capable of being, rather than the people that society sometimes limits them to be. And I'm putting all of that content as much as I can on my podcast and having chats with people who are in that space and all of that. Just like a bit like yourself, obviously in my early phases, but trying to make a difference and help people become the people they are capable of becoming.
Excellent. Good for you.
Yeah. So tell us how that journey started for you.
Well, the personal development journey of my personal development journey started when I was a teenager because my father was an entrepreneur, and he had Think and Grow Rich and Earl Nightingale's great recording, The Strangest Secret, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Carnegie. All of those kind of books were on the bookshelf when I was growing up as a teenager, right? And so we were encouraged to read as kids, all of us in the family. So I, started my personal development journey fairly early in life, and having a father who was an entrepreneur kind of inclined me to that direction in life. And so that, was kind of on the side. I was out there in the world doing my thing, trying to create my personal success story and studying personal development, and eventually came across Tony Robbins and everybody else along the way, Dennis Lately and whatnot, all those early pioneers, Jim Rohn, etc. In those early days, as I was working my way through my own entrepreneurial journey, and so that was just a study thing. But when I was 45 years old, and I decided in a moment of desperation, if you will, of a critical moment in my life when I came to the conclusion that I had to stop pursuing my own selfish success story and start committing the rest of my life to being of service to my fellow human beings. And then my life took a different path, and the success that I was pursuing desperately and working my ass off towards getting suddenly came to me almost automatically when I made that shift from focusing on myself to focusing on being a contribution to my fellow human beings. The success came easily and automatically.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And what were some of the early things that you were listening to or hearing from some of the people you mentioned then that was really resonating with you?
Well, yeah, how much have I read? Hundreds and
It's
hundreds and
difficult to come
hundreds.
back to all of those things because
Yeah,
sometimes it's a journey, and sometimes you read things at different times and they mean different things.
exactly. Or you go back and you read them years later and you see something that you didn't realize you didn't catch the first time around, or it has a different layer of meaning to it. Now that you've been through your own journey, you go back and recognize a bigger truth that you were able to see the first time. But I think there's two statements I think that have stuck with me and really guide the way I think about um, the creation of success. And the first one is by Earl Nightingale, who did that great LP recording, which you can find on YouTube, etc., called The Strangest Secret. Everybody should listen to that. Okay. Um, who defines success as the progressive realization of a worthy ideal or set of ideals, right? So, in other words, you're constantly moving towards an ideal that you've established for yourself, and that ideal, as you move progressively towards it, grows and expands and becomes clearer and bigger, right? So, success is not a destination; it's a journey towards that, you know, progressively growing ideal. So that's the first statement. And then the second one, of course, is Napoleon Hill, which is, whatever. And I mean, that's a key word, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. I mean, that for me is the most profound statement any human being has ever uttered, right? And it is so empowering if you get your head wrapped around that whole thing. Is like, whatever you can conceive, like whatever you can imagine, right? Bring up even human imagination, whatever you can imagine and believe, right? You can achieve. And that if you get your head wrapped around that, it becomes a fundamental belief, then your limitation, your sense of personal limitation just really kind of disappears, right? Because you go like, okay, well, whatever the hell I want to do, I can do it, right?
Yeah, definitely. And my podcast is called the "You Can Do It" podcast. Hashtag You Can Do It. And I was lucky. I got brought up by a mother who told me I could do anything I wanted to. And when I was a kid, I was very competitive at sports, and I used to win a lot. And I got a winning mentality. And I actually, from a very young age, have always believed that to be true. Whatever you wanted to do in life, you could make happen if you really wanted to do it. I include things like if I wanted to be an astronaut or a physicist or anything. If there was something I wanted to do, I believed I was capable of doing it. And I think it's a shifter. It's a shifter to everything is possible from the point that most people are in, and that's things aren't possible. Things are out of my reach.
Well, yeah, people are conditioned to believe in limitation and lack and in struggle, and that the world is a tough place, and that human beings historically have always been in struggle right from the early days, when we were struggling to even eat. We're cavemen, if you imagine, right? And we're fighting with the animals and all of that kind of stuff. We have this picture in our heads of life being a struggle and full of limitations and all of that. And that's kind of a false story, right? It hems us in. It puts us in a little box or a cage, if you will. And our modern world, since the beginnings in the Industrial Revolution, human beings have been conditioned to be a part of a machine, right? So you get an education, whatever it is, whether you become a physicist, like you said, or a doctor or a lawyer or, a construction worker or a factory worker or whatever, you have a job, you have a function in society, right? So you're a piece of the machine, right? That's what you're educated and trained to be, is a piece of the machine. So success from our societal point of view is defined for you as being a productive member of society, right? That's what success is defined by our culture as being. And that limits you, because that says that you have to be within this, existence of this culture we've constructed for ourselves. You have to be a productive member of that society, right? Well, that defines you. It puts you in a box, and in fact, your possibilities are unlimited, right? And if you look into what inspires you, what makes your heart sing, right? That is probably not, it may not necessarily be, but even more than that, it is probably not the role that you've been assigned to play within society, right? And as a consequence of that, our culture has come to the point where we find ourselves in right now, where there's this massive confusion and change and all kinds of stuff going on in our world right now. It's because people have been restricted and are being progressively more restricted into lack in limitation instead of expansive imagination and possibilities for themselves and for all of us collectively, of course.
Yeah, definitely. And, I see it as a bit, I was having this conversation with somebody earlier on today, where I see the fact that, slavery, of the past hasn't actually changed. It's just gone economic. It's not black and white in color, but it's, the people who are enslaved are enslaved economically to have to be in the system because it's the way the system works. And the people at the top of the system who are paying for people, they're the ones who are enslaving people, if you like, because everyone's enslaved to having to fit into society and spend the money they've got to spend, well, earn the money that they've got to spend to live within that system. So if you can break outside of that system, then I think you've broken outside of slavery and you're actually truly free. You're actually an independent person living an independent life. Don't know what your thoughts are on that, but that's how I see things.
Well, yeah, I mean, the word slavery, typically brings up the, idea. I live in North America, I live in Canada, so, we tend to relate very strongly to the Americans' situation. So, for us, the word slavery, you think of, these poor black people, or the indentured Irish, for that matter, in the southern half of the United States, working away on plantations, with a bunch of white overseers with whips and chains and all that kind of stuff. But the reality was that those people were working. They were forced, but nevertheless they were working. And in return for their work, they got food, clothing, and shelter. Right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily good food, clothing, and shelter, but they got fed and clothed and sheltered. Right?
Yeah.
In return for their work.
Yeah.
Okay. So now what we do is, instead of just directly having food, clothing, and shelter supplied to us in return for our work, we go out, we work, and we get a piece of paper, and then we change that piece of paper into food, clothing, and shelter. Well, you try and explain to me the difference.
Well, exactly. Well, what has changed? It seems to be that the slaves have actually enslaved, sorry, the slave masters have enslaved the slaves, but just hidden the slavery in another term.
Well, yeah, they've obscured it, but the system is still in place. But instead of it being a certain class or color of people, it's grown to include the mass of people within society, right? Where everybody is out there enrolled in a system and essentially brainwashed to believe that in order to have this successful life, their security, their freedom, their healthcare, their food, their clothing, their shelter, their limited amount of personal prosperity, their big screen TVs and all of that kind of, luxury life that they consider, or the fancy new car or whatever, they're still exchanging blood, sweat, and tears in return for those privileges, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And they're, as a consequence of that, they don't have the time, the energy, the freedom to think about what it is that they really want to do themselves during this lifetime, out into the world to express themselves, to be free, to talk, to communicate, to be a contribution to their fellow human beings. They don't have any of that freedom because they're boxed in with this mindset. So the slavery is not just a physical kind of slavery, it's really kind of a mental and spiritual kind of slavery, right?
Yeah. I think people are sort of imprisoned, if you like, in their own mindset. Rather than breaking free, they're not locked away in prisons, but they're actually imprisoned in the system and in their thought process. And unless you are willing to break out and think differently, then you're locked in, what society and the state and different people have told you is the way of life, and how life is to be lived, and you're never going to venture outside of that. I think that's where I'm concerned about. I think, and I don't know, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, etc. But it comes to me as a surprise why all the great learnings and teachings of the personal development, personal empowerment space isn't taught in the education system.
Well, yeah. There's a lot of things that are not taught in the education system that should be. If we were to have an ideal world, right? Self-sufficiency, personal sovereignty, and empowerment literature practices. All of those kind of things should be taught in the education system if we really want to have an elevated, self-empowered group of individuals out there in the world. But I mean, that's not the purpose of the education system. Purpose of the education system is to produce cogs in the machinery, right?
Yeah.
To be that productive member, right? The current education system, and we have to remember this, the current education system came into being as a result of the Industrial Revolution, right? So we have
We needed
factories.
those cogs because actually they needed to be cogs in the machine of the machines.
Well, exactly. The factories produce the cogs in the machine, and the schools produce the cogs in the machine.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but and that's what amazes me as well, though, is that that education system. A lot of the curriculum in the UK, for example, geography, history, three sciences, whatever. That's been around for donkey's years. You have a look at how quick technology has moved on in just the last 6 months. I was going to say the last 10 years, but let's just look at the last 6 months, and like they're still teaching the same things they were teaching for like the last 60 years, and it's just like it doesn't make any sense. But why? Surely, again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Surely there's somebody somewhere at the top somewhere that realizes that this isn't the best that could be.
Well, yeah, and again, I'm not all that familiar with the educational system and who's in charge of it and what the curriculum is in the UK. But again, if we look at what's going on in North America, we might have more familiarity with what's going on. The educational system in the United States, they brought out several years ago something called Common Core, right? Which was supposed to be an update to the educational system, to bring it into the modern age. Well, actually, what it did is it progressively made people stupider. All right, and complicated things, and limited education, even more than it was before. So instead of having people who were being taught how to think, right, they were being taught what to think.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a big difference between being taught how to think and being taught what to think, right? So when you're taught what to think, all you do is regurgitate information, right?
Yeah.
And if the information that you're given is this narrow and that's what you're taught to regurgitate, then anything that's outside of that, you can't even conceptualize how to think about that information if you come across it, right? So it creates not just limitation, but it creates confusion in people's minds, right? So when they hear something that is outside of that narrow bandwidth that they've been given, they hear something that's outside of there, they go like, that's like so outside of my reality picture, I don't even know how to think about it, right? And as a consequence, you get all of these people out there that are, running around in a state of cognitive dissonance and constant anxiety because there's now, the situation we find ourselves in, there's all kinds of dissonant information that's being, made available to us, and people don't know how to deal with it because they've been never taught how to think critically, and independently, right? They've been told how to think.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Again, the theme running through my day today is innovation and creativity. I did a post this morning on my podcast. I do a morning motivation, and it was about innovation and creativity. And I posted it on my LinkedIn, and I said, "Create to be great." I come up with a catch line, as a quote. Create to be great. And I think creative thinkers and people who are willing to think outside the box and be different, yeah, they're the people who go towards self-empowerment and betterment, and end up being the top 3% on the planet or whatever. They're making everything sort of work, if you like, and then everyone else sort of stays in their box and then dies eventually, and then lives a life of regret, and then it ends. And what I'd like to, what I'm in the mission of doing is a guest like yourself is trying to empower as many people as possible to see the alternative reality, if you like, them to be able to think and create and innovate their way into an existence and a life that they actually are proud of and is fulfilling, and they want to continue to build and develop till their end of their days, and leave a legacy for lots of people after the end of their days to continue on with that sort of development process. So, for people who may be catching this, a lot of them won't catch it because they're not looking for personal development content. But people who come across it on the podcast or on the YouTube channel, what would be your tips for sort of starting that journey and starting to, maybe think outside of their box and their own limitations?
Well, I think the first thing that anybody who wants to become a self-actualized human being and wants to create a measurable amount of personal success needs to do is to spend some time being a little bit reflective and come up with a really clear picture of what it is that they consider to be their success story. In other words, what do you want to bring out into the world, right, in order to be rewarded? Okay. So define your success, clearly, right? And that sounds simple, but if and I dare you to try this experiment. You go out and ask 100 people, what does success mean to you? Right?
They won't know. They won't know.
They won't know, right? They can't tell you, right? So and I say to people, if you cannot, in a sound bite, that typical elevator pitch, right? Or you go to a cocktail party, somebody says to you, so what does success mean to you? If you can't in one paragraph tell somebody what your success means, then how on earth do you know what direction you're traveling in life? Right? If you haven't defined your destination, how do you ever expect to get to a destination, right? So step number one, define your success. And it has to be not just a mental exercise, but an emotional exercise, because if you don't have the passion, the desire, the profound impulse, emotional impulse to move progressively towards that definition of success for yourself, then, whatever struggles come along or impediments or, whatever shows up, you're going to be dissuaded from continuing. You're not going to have the persistence, the passion to continue. So you need to have it both be an intellectual clarity and an emotional substance to it to drive you constantly, to have it become a purposeful thing, so that every single day you get up and you jump out of bed excited to be alive, right? And moving towards that success story, right? I mean, if you look at the way people live their lives, they set the alarm on their clock to wake them up to start their day, and then 9 times out of 10 they hit the snooze button so they can have another 10 minutes worth of sleep, right? Why not wake up naturally, excited, jump out of bed, ready to dig into this great new day, this fresh opportunity, to go out and do something magical in the world? Why not would you prefer to wake up that way, right? Instead of hitting the snooze button and going like, oh, fuck, another day, I've got to go to work, right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, what would you choose, right? And so if you want to wake up that way and get excited and be passionate about what you're doing, define your success and have it come from your heart and your head together, and then live your life according to those, to that design that you've got for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And find somebody who's actually already achieved what you're trying to achieve, and replicate the blueprint, or innovate and create and work out how you can replicate the blueprint and add some to it.
Right. Yeah. There are lots of good coaches out there. There's lots of mentors, and there's great books on the shelves, right? And you can find um, a way to create the success, and with and just a little self promotion here. People go to DELFIN Dolphin.world, right? There are courses on there specifically step-by-step instructions on how to create success. So I've laid it out for anybody who wants to follow it.
Yeah. Well, that was the next question I was going to ask you. Actually, was to tell me a little bit about the website and the brainchild behind it, and what led you to, because I know it's a massive resource of content for people who want to improve and personal develop and get some empowerment in their life and that sort of thing. So what was the sort of brainchild behind that, and how did it come to be in being, if you like?
Well, you mentioned a word a while back in this conversation called legacy, right? So I'm 70 years of age, right?
Okay, you're looking good on that, by the way, Leslie.
Thank you. um, anyway, so at different points in your life, you have different priorities, right? When you're 20, your priorities are different than when you're 30, and et cetera, right? But anyway, now that I'm at that age of my life where 70 is here, the most important thing I think for me now is legacy, right? What what can I leave behind? And so Delphin World is a legacy project where I can put everything that I have managed to learn and put into practice in one place, so that people who are interested in self-development, personal empowerment, self-actualization, the methodology of creating personal success, can go there and they can find it and access it. And if they choose, um, apply what they learn there to their own lives and make a measurable difference in the world. So that's why the website exists. The resources in the website are still being developed. I'm still working on them, right? And there will be more and more content there as long as I'm capable of creating more and more content. So that's why it's there. Is I want to empower and uplift as many people on this planet like you as I possibly can. And the website that is an expression of how I plan to do that, not only while I'm here and capable of being creative, but after I'm gone.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You mentioned Jim Rohn, and Jim's left a good legacy. Obviously, he still lives on, if you like, in a bit of Tony Robbins and all the other people that he's impacted. But again, he's somebody who I'm more newer to in the personal development space. But I can see he's a bit of a godfather of the personal development space. I love a lot of his YouTube content, etc. And I must admit, I've not seen so much of yours, but I've just heard more about yours, and I know it's making the good impact that it is. So probably as I got to know you now, etc., and I found a lot of the information that you've given as very useful and very practical. So I definitely will be consuming some of that content, especially on the website. And I guess you've got a lot of stuff on YouTube as well, have you?
Well, my YouTube stuff is more personal, right? I mentioned at the beginning, you say, what do I do? At the beginning of this podcast, you say, so what do you do? And I said, oh, I go for walks in the woods with the dog, right?
Yeah.
And can you see him?
I can see a little bit of brown, I think. Oh, there, yeah. I can see him now. Yeah.
All right.
Golden Retriever.
Yeah, golden retriever, and he's busy having a nice nap because we had a nice long walk this morning at sunrise. But so and I walk in the woods. We go for anywhere between 4 and 8K hike first thing in the morning, and occasionally, not all the time, but occasionally, while I'm out there walking with him, I get inspired to just grab my phone, and just shoot a video, walk and talk along in the woods, right? And so they're kind of more personal. They are, the same motivation lies behind them, about, you know, empowering people, giving them opportunities to think about things from a different perspective from, you know, what I'm thinking about at the time. But there's no specific mechanism or methodology in those videos about how to create a successful life for yourself. I leave that kind of, you know, more practical type of information for the website, and my rambling talks in the woods are just kind of philosophical musings, right?
Okay.
So yeah, there's the YouTube stuff. My personal website, lesliefieger.com, is down right now because I'm completely remodifying it from the old WordPress kind of semi-blog kind of website to something new and different. So that's down. But you know, I encourage people to go to dolphin.world and find what they need there, right?
Yeah, and are you active on all the socials, or is there one particular is the best place to get and consume your content for people? I'm big into digital marketing and social media and all that. So, is there, you know, somewhere you'd like to send people there? That's a good flavor of what you do.
Well, you know, I have my personal Facebook page, and that's just, you know, current events, right?
Yeah,
So, you know, that, you know, if you want to get involved in current event conversations, that's where you would go. But again, you know, I have several different other pages on Facebook and groups. There's a Dolphin World group, you know, Dolphin World, just look it up on Facebook, and that's where I would send people who are interested in pursuing a success journey, is to the Dolphin World Facebook group, right? It's a
yeah.
private group. You have to ask to join, you know, and you either get accepted or not.
Yeah. Based
um,
on the questions, you got some questions to vet people who are coming in and joining the group.
yeah, you know, and then, you know, Facebook being what it is, there's people who join a million groups, and right, and some of them simply because they want to advertise their own products and all of that kind of stuff. So, you know, we kind of prevent people from doing that. It's a group for people who want to be part of a community of success-minded people who are contributing to each other through conversation, and, you know, want to have access to what is helpful, right, rather than, you know, a series of commercials or a bunch of people indulging in conversations that are not productive, right?
Yeah, definitely, and the Dolphin Trilogy, for people who've not read them and etc. You know, tell people a little bit about that, what that covers.
Wow. Um, Dolphin Trilogy is about 800 pages, right, of text. So what does it cover? Essentially, the conversation starts with the concept of consciousness, and moves through how we can utilize our understanding of what consciousness is, what mental activity is, the power of thought, if you want to put it that way, to be creative and contributory in the world, and then all of the metaphysical understandings, philosophical understandings of history wrapped up into, you know, one book. So, you know, I was 3 books. It's a trilogy, but it's published now as one volume, and it's on Amazon. Just look up my name on Amazon. There's several books up there that you can access, right? Um, so, you know, the Dolphin Trilogy began in 1995 when I sat down and started writing. And there was a first version, and then a second book, and then the first book was rewritten, expanded, and then there was a third book. So, and it became the Dolphin Trilogy. You know, it's, you know, tens of thousands of people around the world have read the work, right, and applied it, to the way they go about their living their own lives. And I'm proud of that, you know, that we have, you know, impacted the lives of many, many people around the world. And, you know, the stuff that's on the internet, the nature of the internet, you know, the podcasts that I've done and the webinars that I've done and whatnot like that, you know, they've been viewed millions and millions of times. So I'm quite pleased with the impact of having reached out and touched many people's lives out there. So it's, you know, it's an ongoing journey, and I'm in love with it. And, you know, it's uplifting for me, fulfilling for me. And at the same time, I believe I'm creating value for other people.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? You know, I just don't understand why people don't get, giving value to other people is not, it's so some people who are selfish don't understand that, it doesn't benefit them, so why would they? But a lot of people aren't clever enough to realize it actually does benefit them anyway. Giving to others is actually beneficial to you, but it's not selfish. It's the opposite of selfish. It's actually selfless to give to others, but actually you're giving to yourself at the same time. You're also giving to humanity, and you're giving to, the universe, and actually you're making an impact on the universe, rather than just, you know always thinking about what's in it for me, and what can I benefit from it. And it's just so short-sighted, and for me, I just don't understand why people are like that, where that short-sightedness comes from.
Well, yeah, I think again, it's the nature of the culture, right? If you believe that there that life is a bit of a struggle and there is this pie that's available and you have to fight and struggle to get your piece of the pie, then you're going to be like, how can I get the best for me and for my family, my children, and whatever. But what do I have to do? What do I have to actually go out with my sword into the world and hack down trees, or kill the woolly mammoth, or whatever, in order to feed my children, myself and my children. If that's your concept of the world, then it's always going to be, what you would
Protectionism.
say selfish, right? You can call
Yeah.
that selfish if you want, but it's a survival kind of instinct. It's a lower brain, kind of limbic brain activity, right? To pursue that kind of selfish end. So I know the big difference in my life when I quit focusing on me, and decided to spend the rest of my life being a contribution to my fellow human beings, and started writing the Dolphin system, and created Dolphin International, and the whole multi-level marketing aspect that went with it and all of that. When I made that decision to be a contribution and focus on making other people successful, finding a way to empower other people, my life became instantly full of ease and fulfillment, right? And the success that I'd been pursuing all those years, struggling hard for, came like almost automatically as a result, right, of changing my mindset from grabbing what's available to me for me within a limited pie, to understanding that I could make the pie expansively bigger by being a contribution, rather than trying to grab a piece of a limited pie, going in and saying, let's make the pie fucking bigger.
Exactly.
Right?
Or let's invent 10 pies, or create some new flavors of pies, or whatever you need to do.
Exactly. And some cupcakes and banana bread and everything else, right?
Yeah, everything else
Yeah,
that's good, for everyone to share. Let's just have a big pie barbecue.
yeah. Yes. Yeah, invite the neighbors.
Yeah, exactly, and have a bit of fun.
Yeah.
Even get the pool on, and have a big pool party. You know,
Yes.
but yeah, uh, so we've covered quite a lot there in the sort of personal development space as well. Is there anything else you particular that's going on at the moment in your world that you'd like to sort of talk about? Is there something, any pressing issues or anything?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we're all dealing with the way that things are in the world right now, but let's not talk about that. Um, I think really critically what I would want to say to people is that, that each of us knows in our heart that there is a bigger, better expression of ourselves that is, desperately screaming to get out and be allowed to play in the world, right? That we each know that there is a higher aspect to us, a better version of ourselves, and that all we need to do really is to give it permission to come out, and the mechanisms to fulfill and allow that better version to expand out into the world will show up, right? And whether they are Dolphin World, my stuff, or whether they are, somebody else's stuff, or, books that you can find on the internet, or courses you can find on the internet, or listening to your podcast, whatever the appropriate mechanism to enable and empower that greater version of themselves to come out will be provided, right? Just have the trust, the expectation that what you need to grow will show up if you just admit to yourself that there is a better version of you that is desperate to come out and play in the world, and give it permission to do that and say, yeah, okay, I want to be a better person, more self-actualized. I don't mean better morally, I mean more self-actualized. I know that I can be bigger, better, creative, have more fun, be more fulfilled, go out there and be a kick-ass dude in the world, right? I can do that, and give yourself permission to do that. And the mechanisms, the ways, the education, the, you know, whole thing will open up for you simply because you give yourself permission to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's brilliant. And I guess things have changed for you. You know, we don't need to talk about lockdown, but I guess, you know, speaking on stages and stuff has obviously been, you know, blocked and pushed over to next year and all the rest of that. Are you speaking anywhere online, any big events that people should know about and want to tune into if there's something coming up soon?
No, well, there is, but it's still in the planning stages, so I'm not going to mention it. And it'll be announced on the website, of course. But yeah, because of, you know, not being, I love standing on stage in front of people.
Yeah.
Personally, because you get to meet them, you get to give hugs and, you know, talk to them and go for a beer after the seminar and all of that kind of stuff. That's enormously rewarding, because, you know, pressing the flesh, talking to real people face to face is, you know, is better than, you know, this is great, Zoom is great, and all of that kind of stuff. And
yeah,
but
it doesn't beat the real handshake and the looking in the whites of the eyes, and you know,
right,
all of that,
not.
understanding the body language and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, but in the meantime, we have to do what we have to do. So, you know, I had a worldwide webinar release some time back, and I'm going to do another one here shortly. You know, within the next 60 days. So, you know, it'll be announced. I don't want to talk about it right now because I'm still working on it. I haven't even come up with a name for it yet. So that's pretty much why I don't want to say what it's going to be, because if I change the name between now and the time it's published, then nobody will be able to find it, will they?
That's right.
But it'll be on the website, and it'll be on Facebook and everywhere else as well. So.
Yeah, and have you got a first gig lined up, or are they just penciled in at the moment, or, you know, for getting back on a stage?
Well, I mean, you know, I don't even know when I will be allowed to get on a plane and travel to another country without going through quarantines and all of the restrictions that were going on. So, like, you know, I can't say a date. I as soon as possible.
Okay, yeah.
As soon as possible. So once they give us permission to actually go out into the world and behave like normal human beings again, I will be somewhere in the world on stage for anybody who wants to join me, and we can have a good conversation about life and how to maximize your experience of it.
Yeah. Have you ever spoken on stages in the UK?
Yes.
Yeah. What sort of events have you been at on stage in the UK?
Well, my own.
Okay, your own events, yeah. So part of a tour of your own events.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because that's sort of my big goal at the moment. That's the thing that gets me springboarding out of bed every day. Is I'm on a mission to become a global speaker. So, you know, I've spoken on some stages to, you know, 100 people or 150 people a few times here and there. It's only something I decided during lockdown that I'm actually actively going to pursue, which is why I actually created my podcast. I created my podcast the end of April, and I've done 480 odd episodes since then. So
wow.
I'm full at it. I'm trying to fail quick and fail fast so I can get to where I want to get to quickly. And so yeah, I'd be interested to catch you on a stage somewhere, and maybe, who knows, maybe I could potentially share one with you one day.
That would be awesome.
Yeah,
that would be awesome. Yeah.
So
yeah, I've enjoyed sharing stages with people in the past. It's always fun because you bounce off of each other and you know, share a bit of energy, and you elevate each other's conversation, because, you know, especially if you get to follow somebody else, right? It's like every speaker's nightmare is
Yeah,
going like,
it's
oh
the
my
warm
God,
up,
this
the
guy was
warm
so
up guy.
yeah, the warm up guy blows you away, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, and yeah, oh great, now I have to be better.
Yeah, no, I'm much more like you. I love networking, online and all that, from the efficiencies and the cost saving and all that. But, I like shaking hands. I like going for a beer with someone. I like having a laugh and a joke, building, proper relationships. So,
Yeah,
I've loved the online Zooming. I'm now globally networking. I'm an award-winning networker. 2018, I won Network of the Year at Wales's biggest business network. And ever since then, I've been networking around the UK rather than just in Wales. And since lockdown, I've been globally networking, and that's because I'm on a mission to become a global speaker. So just trying to get out there and reach to as many people on the planet, build those relationships, stay in people's minds, so that when these events start kicking back up again, hopefully I can come along as the crazy Welsh podcaster who's done 1,000 podcast episodes in his first year or whatever. I can come along and talk on that, and then all the other things I want to help and educate people about.
oh great, well that's awesome. I mean, now you have a clear picture, you see.
Yeah. I've had the clear picture for a while. It's just, yeah, I crystallized it a bit. I crystallized my why during lockdown. And I think, like you said, once you can get that in focus and you know exactly what it is that you get out of bed for every day, it's very easy to do the actions and the activities. And I'm a big believer in enjoying the journey, and the destination isn't necessarily the be all and end all. And actually, what happens quite often is, as you get closer to the destination, you start seeing a different destination anyway, as the horizon expands and opens up to the new possibilities. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm with you on a lot of the stuff that you said. A lot of the personal development stuff is quite logical. It's quite, a lot of people say the same things, but it's who you want to listen to and who you resonate with. And you don't have to rip up the rule books. The reason a lot of people say the same things is because they're the things that work, and it's the things that people need to do to get to that realization of taking control of their own life and giving more back to the universe than you're taking, and developing some sort of legacy for yourself and others.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Exactly the same. The reason that people keep saying the same things over and over and over and over again is because they know that they work.
Exactly, and they just work to different people, new
Yeah,
audiences every time.
yeah. And different people have a different way of saying the same thing too. So I could say something, and it go right over the head of somebody, or they don't hear the message, or the way that I talk doesn't appeal to them. And then you go out there and you say exactly the same thing, and they go, "Wow, look, Mike has got the message. He's got it. He knows everything. This is so great, right?" Um, it's just everybody has their own, harmonizing element, right? And you might be perfect for some people, and I might be perfect for other people.
Yeah, exactly. And who are some of the interesting characters you've managed to share the stage with?
Oh, well, I don't know. I'm not going to name drop.
Okay. It's always good to find out who people have done. I myself started on my personal development journey by meeting Grant Cardone, and I really like what he's doing. What he does resonates with me because of we're both into sales and marketing, and he's into property as well, and I'm looking to get into property. But I actually won my Network of the Year award in front of Grant Cardone and Elena Cardone. So he's definitely somebody I'd like to share the stage with at some point. I'd love to have a debate and a chat about sales and marketing and all the things that I find interesting. But I suppose they're the people the people you click with, and are the sort of people you'd like to go to the pub with and have a pint with, and the people that I would imagine you benefit from sharing a stage with the most. People who are on the same sort of similar trajectory, etc.
Well, I don't know about that actually. I mean, I've enjoyed sharing the stages with people. Definitely, that you get to like them enough that you want to go sit down and have a pint afterwards with, right, and have a conversation, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's I think that's important, that you need to resonate with them personally, right?
Yeah.
But I also like to be challenged, right? So if there's somebody out there that is saying something that, you know, I kind of find that it's the same as what I think, but they're adding an element that's different that I hadn't thought of. So, you know, they're challenging me, and maybe even saying something contradictory to what I say, right? Um, I like to listen to that as well, because it provides growth for me, right? You know, if I'm just talking to the people who are like an echo chamber and saying the same things as me, then I don't get an opportunity to become more, to grow, to expand my own vision of things by looking at things from a different perspective. So I've enjoyed, you know, being on stage with people who say things, and the first time I hear them, I go like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
That's not what I know to be true. But, you know, because they've said something out there that have caused me to think differently about things and look at things from a different aspect, it's given me the opportunity to expand my own sense of how I see things. And I enjoy that, I think, as much as, you know, sharing the stage or um, listening to people who completely agree with me and my perspective.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I suppose. I suppose both of those situations myself, I enjoy. You know, I think it's good to. It's always good to see other people's opinions, and you know that's what I think is so wrong with the world at the moment. With a lot of it is that everyone picks sides, and both sides are right. You know, and the other sides
Yeah.
are wrong. And actually, you know, usually the truth is somewhere, you know, grey in the middle. You know, nothing's ever black and white. You know, in a racial context and in a metaphorical context, things aren't always one side and the other, and etc. There's always a lot of different shades of grey, you know, always in the middle. And so, yeah, you know, it's great to go and have a beer with people that, you know, you really do share, you know, very similar views with, etc. But, you know, I do like those people that open up your eyes and different perspectives and, you know, different cultures and all sorts of things, because, you know, there is no right and wrong in a lot of instances. There's just opinion and perspective.
Right. Exactly. Just opinion and perspective. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. I'm conscious that you're a busy man, and I don't know if I've got another one at 4 o'clock or not. I don't know. I tend to finish one and look at the other one, or I used to set up separate Zooms, but now I just have one long one. So sometimes someone pops up like you did earlier when I was just wrapping up to one, and that reminds me to wrap up. And actually, sometimes I like having guests on the last one of the day, because then we could just talk till it ends, if you like, the conversation ends. And I'm sure, you know, you've got plenty more to share, and I would have loved to carry on speaking with you, but I'm sure you've got things to be going on with as well. So I'd just like to say thank you very much for coming on my podcast and for sharing your wisdom and your insights and information about how people can get in touch with you, etc. And just wish you all the very best for everything you continue to do.
Well, thank you, Mike. It's been a pleasure talking to you too. And, you know, it's always a pleasure to talk to people like you who are committed to going out there and making a difference. And, you know, congratulations on running these podcasts one after the other, like, you know, 1,000 podcasts. That's awesome. Right. I can't even imagine, you know, that as a goal for myself, because I don't have the energy like you do. So,
Yeah.
all right. It is so great. And I really do truly hope to see you on stage once we get past all this nonsense.
Yes.
And maybe even you can, I'll open up for you.
Well, if you do any tours or anything to the UK or Europe or actually anywhere, because I don't mind traveling. I'm a good traveler. I like traveling. If ever you're doing anything and you wanna get a young gun who's new to the game of speaking on stage and blood in you know, and help him blood into an audience, I'm fair game. At some point, I'm gonna blood into the right audience. Like I say, I've spoken on stages to 100 people here, 100 people there, but at some point I've got a mission to do a big event somewhere. So, you know, if I don't get booked onto a big event, at some point I'll do my own. So, you know, there's more than one way around getting to where you want to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. As long as you have the vision, the dream, and the passion, it'll happen for you.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, just thanks very much for coming on, and I look forward to sharing this content. I'll probably publish it this evening. I'll put it on all socials and everything. If you want me to send you the link, I can. If not,
Oh,
just, do you want me to tag you in? Do you want me to tag you in on anything, on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever?
I'm not very, yeah, on Facebook. Tag me in on Facebook.
Facebook, yeah. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
tag you in on Facebook and, happily have you share it if you want to share it in any of your groups or communities. But just wish you all the best, okay? And thanks again.
Well, thank you, Mike. It's been a pleasure.
Brilliant. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Right, and there's nothing else left for me to say now other than have a great day. I know I will. And thanks very much for listening. Cheers. Bye-bye.